Hello, welcome to the Slate Show. I'm Corey Zay, your host all season long here on the Slate Show. What this show is a gap filler. We're going to go over everything Electric City Wiffle Ball that you didn't see last week on the feature. Now for this week, it's Slate 1. It's opening day, which we have branded as Takeoff because we like to brand things and make graphics and stuff. I don't know. That's just what we do. Now, at Takeoff, we had 7 games. If you didn't see the 2 that were our feature games, the Stunners and the Dynasty, and Arm Barn and DX, go ahead and check those out on our YouTube channel. They were posted last week, and they'll be posted every other week, just like this show. That leaves 5 of the 7 games to go over, and we will go over all 7 teams. Now, if you're looking for a particular format for this show, good luck, because I don't know what the format is. I'm just here to fill you in, give you information, and maybe entertain you. So, let's just get right into it. As I said, there's no real format, so I thought, what's the best way to kind of break things down here? And all I did was just write down some bullet points of my takeaways from Takeoff. So let's go. The first one is a general observation, a macro level observation, if you will, and that is that the pitching was phenomenal. Now, in addition to just watching strike after strike be thrown and batter after batter get mowed down, we also have some numbers. First of all, there were 2 no-hitters thrown. And for context, there were 4 all of last year. So that is the 5th and 6th no-hitter ever thrown in league history. And we'll get into those particular no-hitters in a moment. League batting average for Takeoff, 290. Last season, for the full regular season, 357 for comparison. Likewise with the pitching. Last year, team ERAs were just over 6. At Takeoff, you're looking at 3.42 ERA. So the pitching was on point. That's clear. Now, what was the reason? That's unclear, to me at least. It could be that every pitcher just had a good day. It could be that every offense had a bad day. It could be what we talked about in the offseason, where there was kind of a grace period last season where pitchers needed to get adjusted to this style, and that's understandable. It's year 1 of the league. A lot of the pitchers hadn't played this style before. Some had, but a lot of hadn't. Some didn't even know how to scuff their own balls to get them to move the way they wanted to. So that learning curve has been removed. So I'm not surprised that this season, to start out with, the pitching is much better. Now, what does this mean moving forward? It might not mean anything. It might be an indication that pitching will just be better this season. I tend to believe that it was just 2 games, and we're going to see a lot of different things happen moving forward. It's tough, though, because there's some pitchers that went 0-2 at Takeoff, and they pitched well. So it's like, how do you judge them? You know, do you fault their offenses? Or was it the pitching that shut down the offenses? Was it the lack of offense? I really don't have any answers for you. All I have is questions. Okay, moving on to my next astute observation was that Corey Kane of DX was awesome. Now here's a guy making his first 2 starts as the real ace of the team after they lost their ace in the offseason. And it looks like they replaced him and then some. All Corey Kane did was make 2 starts and throw 2 no-hitters. And again, those are just the 5th and 6th no-hitters in league history. These things don't happen very often. 16 Ks and 8 innings pitched. The 16 Ks is the most on the day. In our feature game that you saw against Arm Barn, he had 11 Ks. That ties the record for most Ks in a game. Jesus, he was just fanning guys left and right. One of the most impressive things to me was actually his game against us, the Stunners. His numbers aren't as good as the game against Arm Barn. 5 Ks, only 3 walks. But the thing that was so impressive was his drop pitch, which is his best pitch, really wasn't working. It kind of failed him. And remember, this is his first real start, and his go-to pitch is not working. So he adjusts, he throws his off-speed, he's like a change-up riser, and his screwball was working very nicely. He wasn't throwing it by us and blowing us away, but man, were we off balance. A lot of contact, as you could see, but not hard contact. And the fact of the matter is, to come out and do that in your first start is friggin' awesome. And I was able to catch up with him after the game. You'll notice I don't even mention that he threw a no-hitter in this post-game interview because I didn't even realize it at the time. It was like, nobody can no-hit us. Oh my God. Anyway, here he is. Here with Corey Kane, fresh off of you completely shutting down the Stunners. There was a lot of talk about DX and figuring out who their ace was. Can you just kind of break down your game one performance there? You looked very good.
I've just been practicing hard with my coach Nate since February, pretty much getting out there every day, putting the work in, trying to develop a new pitch, and just work on my control and keeping the speed limit under control.
Shout out to Corey for working so hard, and Corey Kane as well. Hashtag Team Corey, and shout out to Coach Nate. Was that a hashtag? What did I just do with my hands? What did I just do? I don't want to be the guy who does this and rains on their parade, but to sprinkle maybe a little bit of rain. Offense was not good. Nate Cruz had a 24-game hit streak last year, and he already started out this season 0 for 2 in the first game. He had a hit in the second game. As he said, leaving the field, he's never been so happy to leave a week with only 1 hit. And that's because his coaching resulted in 2 no-hitters and them going 2-0. And again, the large takeaway from this, or the fact that there's only 2 games played by every team, means there's no definitive takeaways, for me at least. So I'm not going to sit here and say DX's offense sucks now, because I don't think that's true. But it's concerning. It's a little concerning that they weren't able to produce a little bit more. And moving forward, now teams, pitchers, specifically, you're going to have to face a team 3 games in a row in a 3-game series. So there's going to be adjustments that Corey needs to make, but not any more than any other pitcher. So I think pitching-wise, they look to be just as good as last year, if not better, which is so frustrating and so comical. You think, like, okay, they lose their ace. They lose the guy who won Pitcher of the Year last year and MVP of the league. Certainly they're going to be wounded. Not a takeoff. Not a takeoff. Looks like another great year for the boys from downstate. Moving on, my next astute observation is something that ties into last season, and that is the performance at Takeoff of both Dynasty and Smash Bros. Now, let me provide a little bit of backstory for those who may not follow the league or be in the league. Last season, on opening day, Dynasty did awesome. They went 3-0, and the rest of the year, they did nothing. They finished 11-13, had a cup of coffee in the playoffs. Smash Bros had a terrible first 3 games and on opening day, and went 1-2, and the rest of the way recovered and was able to win that division. So we arrive at this year, and essentially the same exact thing happened, which is so funny. Dynasty looked awesome. Smash Bros 0-2. They didn't look as bad as they did last year, but we'll get to them in a minute. Let's start with Dynasty. And when you start with Dynasty, you got to start with Chris Hess. I just think he's probably the most consistent pitcher in the league. Whether or not he has the nastiest stuff is up for debate. As you saw in the feature game against the Stunners, he is susceptible to home runs. I believe he gave up 3 in a 4-hitter stretch. Had to be having some flashbacks to Shockwave from last season there. But he's just so good, so consistent. He knows how to pitch. He throws strikes, which sometimes can actually be his downfall. But he had everything working in this game, and he held our offense at bay. You just have to tip your hat. The next guy to get to for Dynasty is Matty B, Matt Butchum. And I was really happy for his performance on opening day here. Last year, Matt had a bad year. I mean, he was projected to be an absolute monster at the plate, and it just never happened. It never happened. Yes, he was pitched around, but he just straight up didn't have a good year. I'm just straight up not having a good time, bro. But he was having a good time at Takeoff. He starts this season. I didn't write down his stats. Hold on. Okay, 3 for 5 with 4 walks. Again, small sample size. It's not those stats aren't going to blow you away, but he hit 600, which is actually good for second in the league right now. And the point is that's just a really good start. Like, that's just a really good start. That's what it was looking for. Contribute to the team offensively, which he didn't do a ton of last season. A lot of that fell on Patty Bailey, and they kind of reversed their positions here. Last season, Patty had a monster year after nobody expected much, and Matt had a dud of a year after people expected a lot. And he came out this year. Matt 3 for 5. Patty had 1 hit. Again, small sample size, but that's what they need. They're going to need Matt to produce. That offense underperformed religiously last year. somehow. And so Matt is just going to have to put in work like that. But it can't be negated by Patty going 1 for whatever either. So offensively, they'll have to get that straightened out, but it looks like they're on course. The next little shout out towards Dynasty here would be for third baseman Dan Charmello. Big 2-run home run against us, 3 for 6 on the day, 6 RBIs. It was so funny. He led the league last season for a long time, maybe the first 4, 5, 6 weeks in singles. And here's a guy who's one of the most powerful hitters I've ever seen swing a bat. He was just singling the teams to death. So it's good to see him get back in the power game, a home run, albeit against the Stunners, my team, which not good, and especially in a game where you lose by 2 and he had a 2-run shot. But the 6 RBI, again, they need robust offensive numbers. They can't single teams to death and nickel and dime teams to death with that much talent in your lineup. But Dan's offense was completely secondary to his defense, which was like kind of the low-key coolest thing about Takeoff. The background for Dynasty's defense is this. They sucked last year. They were atrocious. The league average for double plays per team last season was 11. 11 per team. And Dynasty had 1. Yeah, 1. I mean, open up an investigation into that, because I don't know how that's humanly possible. Anyway, they kind of made up for it just in one day. 1 double play all of last season. Dan Charmello had 3 double plays in the first 2 games of the season. In fact, he had 2 in the first 2 innings of their first game. By the second inning of their first game of the season, they had more double plays this year than they did last year. That's just so crazy to me. That's so crazy to me. Shout out to Dan, though. Those double plays are huge. When you add them up at the end of the year, if you don't have many, your pitcher's just pitching extra innings. That's all you're doing. And so for their defense to come around after I ranked them last, and for Dan to talk all this junk about what a great fielder he is, and then to come up and prove it, good for you, man. Good for you. I will be changing my rankings at the middle of the year. Moving on, the other part of this observation is Smash Bros, the negative part. Now, again, they had an atrocious opening day last season. They gave up 1 billion runs. Their offense didn't look good. Their defense didn't look good. Josh Longo on the mound had an opening day ERA of 32. They weren't that bad at Takeoff. Josh definitely wasn't bad. He gave up 6 runs on the day in 8 innings pitched. It was their offense that really let them down. And again, I might be a broken record here. I'm not going to take away a whole lot from 2 games. I'm not going to sit here and say all of a sudden the Smash Bros offense sucks. But it doesn't mean that it's not concerning. The fact is they have so much talent on this team. They had their full team there, minus Chris. But to me, that's even more. That's Zach getting more at-bats. That's Jesse getting more at-bats. That's Josh getting more at-bats. Those are 3 guys who made the All-Star team last year as hitters in that division. That's just such a talented team to only score a few runs on opening day. They get completely shut down by BK. And again, it might not be cause for concern that they were shut down by one of the best pitchers in the league. But look, they got less hits and runs off of BK than the Diamond Cutters did. I mean, no offense to the Diamond Cutters. Maybe that's a reflection of the Diamond Cutters doing well. I don't know. All I know is that offense should be a lot better. Shut down by Stoney, completely kept them in check. I mean, it's not all doom and gloom for their offense. They didn't do as bad as the Stunners did. Zach was 4 for 8. He hit 500. They need Jesse. I mean, if Josh and Mark are going to combine to go 4 for 18, which they did, then they definitely need Jesse to hit a lot better than 375. He was 3 for 8. And neither one of those guys, neither Jesse or Zach, went yard, which is, they're some of the best power hitters in the league, and that's just what you need them to do. And especially Jesse, who basically single-handedly gets blamed for Smash Bros not winning a championship last season. Why didn't you win it last year? What's different about this year?
Jesse stiffed us in the playoffs last year.
See? See? I mean, all on him. By the way, what do you think I'm looking at in this picture? I look very, very happy there. That looks like somebody who just spotted Mike Curtin warming up and is like, oh, I'm going to get a soundbite.
Back, hit the weight room in the off season, shed a few pounds hopefully. So
You're looking good.
well, I also shaved the mustache. Try to cut down on some of that wind resistance.
See? Anyway, to sum up the Smash Bros thing, it's another bad start for them. It's a different kind of bad start. I don't think they have as many things to work on. You're not looking at, oh my God, who's going to pitch for us? We don't have a pitcher right now. I think Josh did absolutely fine. It's just the offense that they need to step up, and they need their big hitters to be big hitters. Moving on. We should mention the Savages. A great day for them. 2-0 on the day after victories over the Diamond Cutters and Smash Bros. Especially that victory over Smash Bros was clutch. Very clutch. A little come from behind there and a 2-1 win. It all starts and stops with their ace and their captain, Brian Kelly. I mean, everyone knows that. He was a horse last year. Just didn't quite have enough to kind of drag that team into the championship, ending falling one game short. He had a bad offensive year last year, and actually I asked him about that prior to the game.
You still have concerns over your offense because you guys were pretty bad last year. That's really your bugaboo.
Absolutely, and I take a lot on me. Even though I got walked a lot, I plan on being a lot more aggressive this year.
And he stuck to that plan, man. 4 for 5 with 5 walks, a home run, and 6 RBI. And that home run was a grand slam against the Diamond Cutters off Hollywood Nick Osselmeyer in a 6-2 victory. So already, he's already sticking to the plan, and he's already being a beast. Last season, it took him till week 8 to get his first home run, and he's already got one. He's already being more aggressive, as he said, and they need him to be. They need runs. I understand that Brian is a great pitcher, and he can hold any offense to just 2 or 3 runs, but you can't expect that every single game. You can't go out there with the idea that if the other team scores 3 runs, game's over. So they need him. They need him to step up if nobody else is going to. And they did have some other guys step up. Shout out to Austin Zulo. 3 for 5 against Smash Bros. A big 3 singles there in that 2-1 victory. Pretty good start for Zulo with his new team, although he did get shut down by his brother-in-law, Nick. And BK, real quick, 3 runs on the day, 9 hits, 15 Ks. He led the league in strikeouts last year, and he's off to a really good start this season. Now they got DX coming up. We'll get into that a little bit later. But shout out to the Savages, 2-0, a great start. And they're making a lot of teams nervous in that playoff race. A quick rundown of the other 2 teams I didn't mention, the Stunners and the Cutters. Look, Stunners started out 0-2. Again, there's not a lot of panic there from our team. Offense didn't look good, but we faced a guy that was preseason ranked #1 as a pitcher and another guy who threw 2 no-hitters. So I'm not worried yet. I would say Mike Curtin going 0 for 6 is definitely not what we need. I don't know that our offense comes and goes as he goes, because different guys did step up at different times. But he had a tale of 2 seasons last season. In the first half of the year, he hit 435. In the second half of the year, he hit 179. Those are 2 different human beings. And we need 435, Mike, not 179, Mike. And our team has been picked apart in the offseason. Everyone says, good at everything, great at nothing. And what it means is we need all aspects of our game to be on point in order to win. And our offense wasn't, and that's why we're 0-2. The 0-2 is not a big panic. But as we'll get into in a few minutes, our opponent in Slate 2 might be cause for some. On to the Cutters, another 0-2 team. The main thing about them was, what I wanted to see at least, was how Nick performed. They go out and sign him in the offseason to legitimize their pitching. And he's an underrated hitter as well. he basically just fills the role of the guy on that team, right? So I want to see how he performed. And overall, I thought he performed pretty well. The numbers aren't going to bear it out on the mound. You're going to look and see that he has an ERA of 10. He didn't get a whole lot of help from his defense, which is something the Cutters are going to have to work on. See, Nick is going to keep you in games. He's really not going to go out and shut down and win you games, but he's going to keep you in games. But your offense and your defense have to perform. That's going to be the Cutters' challenge all season. It was a challenge at takeoff. Sometimes they met the challenge, sometimes they didn't. Again, the only difference in that game against the Savages is a grand slam by BK. Otherwise, that's a 2-2 game. And that small margin of error is what they're going to have to deal with all season long. I thought it was a good start for Nick. I thought it was a competitive start for the Diamond Cutters, a team who only won 2 games last year and had a ton of games where they were just blown out. I don't expect that this year. I mean, they lost 9-1 to Dynasty, but that game would have been a 12-0 mercy last year. So Nick's there to keep you in it. They just need their offense and their defense to step on up. And I actually asked Nick about all of this prior to their games, and here's what he had to say.
Okay, here with Nick Offelmeyer. Nick, new year, new team. What are your thoughts heading into today in general?
I'm just trying to get a feel for how the team's going to be, how we're going to shake out as a team, as a unit for the season. I have starting out against the Savages. I have a pretty good record against the Savages. I'm hoping to execute my pitches and maybe go deep once or twice.
You do a lot of hope for the Diamond Cutters today. Now, I know you weren't happy about the way the Phenoms broke up last year, and you had a couple of ex-teammates that you're going to be playing today, Matt Butcham and Patty Bailey. You weren't exactly thrilled with the way that they signed with Dynasty. A little extra motivation today, or what's going on with that situation?
You know,
Be honest.
I wasn't happy, but you got to find better opportunity. The Phenoms weren't that good last year, but I was hoping to keep the team together. But hey, we'll see what happens at the end of the day.
And if we go inside the tail of the tape here for that Matty B and Patty matchup against Nick, it looks like they went a combined 1 for 4 with 4 walks. I'm going to call that a no contest. Yeah. We'll see what happens in the rematch, I guess. But shout out to Nick, and good luck on your journey with the Cutters. Moving on and putting a bow on opening day and takeoff here. We take a look at the standings and we see DX atop the standings. What a familiar place for them. Arm Barn, the only team at takeoff to go 1-1. Everyone else is either undefeated or completely defeated. And that'll bring up some very interesting matchups in Slate 2, which we're about to show you right now. And here's what's interesting to me. I've said I'm not really ready to state some definitive opinions based on 2 games, but after Slate 2, I'll be ready. So there's a lot of things I'm going to be looking for at that slate, and we might as well just go down the matchups in chronological order here. Our first matchup in Slate 2, Smash Bros against Dynasty. 2-0 Dynasty against 0-2 Smash Bros. Aside from the fact that, can you imagine if the Smash Bros start like 0-5? It would blow my mind. It really would. That's such a talented team for them to start 0-5, and for Dynasty, really their rivalry. What an idiot I am. Their rival. To just bury them and go 0-5 to start the season, boy, would that be something. Hess's pitching against the Smash Bros offense, that's what most people are going to be cued in on, and rightfully so. Personally, I expect, given that now we're moving to a 3-game series where you're pitching as a pitcher against the same team, that means the batters get to see the pitcher 3 games in a row for the first time ever in our league. I would expect Smash Bros offense to get to Hess, and it might not happen in game 1, but I would expect it to happen by game 2 and certainly by game 3. I don't see either team being able to sweep. Maybe the most interesting thing, honestly, as I'm thinking about it here, is just watching Josh Longo against that Dynasty offense. You know, I think certainly Dynasty's offense has more to prove than Smash Bros. in general, and Josh has more to prove on the mound than Hess. So that is going to be a fascinating matchup to see. Longo against Charmella, Longo against Omar, Longo against Mara. Man, juicy stuff. The other thing too is Jesse. Does Jesse and Zach pop off? Do they all of a sudden start power hitting like they were last year? I mean, Zach had 18 home runs last year. If he comes away after Slate 2 with none or one, man, there's just going to be a lot of questions about that offense, and I did not see that coming. So I guess we'll see what happens against Dynasty and against Hess's pitching. The next matchup for Slate 2 is the Stunners against Arm Barn. Now, to me, this one's mostly about the Stunners, but let me start with Arm Barn. I think Arm Barn is just fine. That team is just too talented to fail. Like, they're not going to miss the playoffs. The top 5 out of 7 teams make playoffs. They're not a 6th or 7th place finishing team, even if they underperform wildly. They're just too much talent. Stoney pitched really well last week, and he's probably not even their best pitcher. They didn't even have Jimmy Cole. They didn't have Doug Baker. Now I assume that they'll have both of them for Slate 2. Yay. I assume Jimmy will pitch, and he's friggin' awesome. I assume Doug will be solid. Godani's now leading the league in home runs. They're good. Like, that's just the way there is now. Sometimes they underperform because they kind of just have a laissez-faire attitude about the regular season. But they always show up and they play, and they're going to be dangerous. Now, the Stunners, I said I'm not panicked at the fact that we're 0-2, and I'm not. I'm not panicked at the fact that we got no hit on opening day. We were no hit last season by Jimmy Cole. But now we turn around and have a 3-game series against the defending champions. And you look at it, like I said, top 5 teams out of 7 make the playoffs. And you start thinking, we're going to be underdogs in all 3 of these games. And we're staring 0-5 right in the face. Even at 1-4, we're going to be down there at the bottom of the standings looking around. Even as early as it is, that seems like that could be our destiny, that we are going to be fighting our asses off for a playoff spot if we don't go out and go at least 2-1 in this series. That's what it feels like. So to me, there's a lot of pressure on the Stunners, especially the offense. I think Aussie pitched fine on opening day. He did just fine. He gave up 8 hits total. Nothing to show for it. That's why he needs his offense and his defense to step up, especially the offense. So we'll see. It's going to be a challenge, and there's a lot of pressure on us. So we'll see. The final game of the slate will be our feature series for Slate 2, and that is the undefeated matchup of DX against the Savages. You have 2 of the top pitchers in the league in BK and now apparently Corey Kane. Should I declare him one of the top pitchers already? I mean, the guy threw 2 no-hitters. Look, I guess there's got to be some doubt about Corey that, like, hey, let me see a little bit more of it. Personally, I just think that he'll be fine, especially against a Savages team whose offense is just straight up not that good, dude. I would assume this is going to be low scoring, right, when you have 2 of the top pitchers in the league, allegedly. And this one could come down to, a hit by Alex Kelly or Stegman or Zulo or a Steve Tazi sighting or Corey Kane single or Sean Ryan, another clutch hit. It's going to come down, those games are going to come down to some little clutch hit here or there, some clutch defensive play. These 2 teams, both of which came in power ranked near the bottom, 5th and 6th. One of them could leave 5-0. One of them is going to leave at worst 4-1 and in a really good position atop the standings. Good for them. Good for them for starting the season like this, for coming out swinging, coming out throwing, and it's going to be a great matchup. 2-0 against 2-0, and already it's a spot where one of these 2 teams can vault themselves way higher than at least I would have thought coming into the season. So that is a great matchup to be looking forward to. All right, well, that'll pretty much do it for the show. I hope it didn't suck too much. Hope I didn't suck too much. I will get better. That's what I used to tell my teachers and my mom and they believed me, so you should too. We've got the feature slate coming up next week. That's DX against Savages. That is the fully edited 3-game series. You can enjoy that right here on this YouTube channel next Sunday, and in 2 Sundays, I will be here to go over everything else that happened at Slate 2. So until then, enjoy your wiffle ball, and I'll see you in a couple weeks.